Hey everybody, so today is going to be an extension of what we did on Friday. So today you're going to be able to solve and graph inequalities on a number line. All right, so it's important to know how to do these by hand, although you'll see today is we're going to focus predominantly on Desmos. But just to review, we use our steps. So I can tell right away that I'm going to need to distribute, and when I distribute, I will get negative 2 times 5 will give me negative 10. Negative 2 times a positive y will give me negative 2y. And that, of course, is going to be greater than 20. Inverse of subtraction is addition. Do that to both sides. You'll see these 10s cancel out. That's going to give me negative 2y, which is greater than or equal to 30. Here, when I divide by negative 2, I'm going to get y and a negative 15. It's important, very important to remember that when you divide or multiply by a negative with an inequality, this sign changes. All right, and that would be your inequality solved. So what this says is that all values for y are less than negative 15. So well, we know A is not going to be it because we have a positive 15. We know C is not going to be it because we have a positive 15. So we're looking for where y is less than negative 15. So here we have every number greater than negative 15. So B is not going to be an answer. And you'll see that D is our answer because it's every number less than negative 15. All right, now if you wanted to do this on Desmos, what you would do is there's a trick here. So first we're going to put the left-hand side in Desmos, which is x divided by 4 minus 13. Hit enter, put your right-hand side in. All right, and you'll see this is very similar to Friday. Also very similar to what we did in equations. So I'm putting my x equals, and I'm looking at these numbers here. I've got a 12, I've got a negative 12, a 12, and a negative 12. So we got lucky. There's only 2 to check. So I'm going to go ahead and check 12. And you can see that my left-hand side is negative 10, and my right-hand side is also negative 10. So they are equal. So I'm going to immediately go ahead and cross out negative 12. Now, it also suggests when you guys are taking a test or a quiz to double check this like we did in class, put your negative 12 in there and make sure. But to save time on YouTube, I will not be doing that. All right, so we know that it's either A or C. All right, here's a trick. You don't even have to do anything else, at least with this particular problem. Look at this variable. All right, that variable is positive, and there's nothing being multiplied or divided into it that is negative, right? This 4 is positive. So this right here is a positive variable. That's the same as 1/4 x. All right, so we can tell that it's positive, which means that this sign does not need to change, which means that our x is going to be less than. Our x value is going to be less than. So without doing any math, I can prove to you that it is C. And just in case you guys don't believe me, I will do this one real quick. So the first thing I need to do is add 13 to both sides. And you'll see here that I get x over 4 is less than or equal to 3. Then I multiply both sides by 4 because I'm dividing here. Those will cancel out, and I will get x is less than or equal to 12. And whoops. And remember with our graph, this is everything. X is going to be every number that is less than or equal to 12. So it works, and it's super fast. All right, so let's try this one. So now this one might be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to have 2x plus 8, and that's going to be over a negative 3. And on my right-hand side, I have a negative 12. So again, you can see that my numbers here are going to be 14, negative 14, 14, and negative 14. So let me go ahead and try it. Type in x equals, and I'm going to put in a 14. And you'll see that I get negative 12 from my left-hand side, negative 12 from my right-hand side. So that's where I'm going to focus. All right, so from here, we have to decide if this variable is positive or negative. All right, so I can rewrite this side as 2x over negative 3 plus 8 over a negative 3. Right, because we know that this is a common denominator. All right, so I can see here that my 2x over negative 3, I have a negative in here, so that's the same as writing negative 2/3 x. So my x is in fact negative, so that means that I have to switch the sign. So when we did Desmos, we had proven that our negative 14s were not going to be the answer. And now we know that my x's are going to be greater than, because my x is always going to stay on this side. So now my x's are going to be greater than. All right, so they will be greater than, all the numbers bigger than 4. So A would be my answer, greater than 4. All right, and just to kind of show you that this does work, is I would multiply both sides by negative 3. And right when I did that, I would have to switch my sign right here. Bam. Because I multiplied both sides by, I multiplied by negative 3. I'll make this positive 36 minus 8 minus 8 be 2x is greater than or equal to 24. Divide by 2, and you'll see we get x is greater than 12. All right. So let's do another one, strictly Desmos. So you can kind of see here, we might have a question coming up with this, but I don't think you guys will have any issues with that. So I'm going to put in my left-hand side, which is 6y minus 5 minus 2y. And my right-hand side is 11. Again, over here, I'm looking at 4, negative 4, 4, negative 4. So when I put y equals and I put 4 in, I got lucky again. So I can tell you that it's not going to be B or D. All right. So now I want to use our trick with the variable. Well, this one's positive and this one's negative. So it's going to come down to which one's bigger. So if I have 6y minus 2y, that will give me 4y. And I know that 4y is positive. So that means that this sign right here does not change. So that means that my y's are going to be less than 4. So everything's smaller than 4. All right. Now this one's a little tricky. Okay, there's some stuff going on here. So we're going to have 14 as our left-hand side. And we're going to have 2n minus 3, n plus 3. And then n equals. Again, we're going to check our positive 23, negative 23. But when I put in a positive 23, I did not get the same answer. See, I get a 14 and a negative 32. But when I put in a negative 23, I get 14 and 14. So right away, you've got it down to a 50-50 shot. So there's a lot going on over here, right? There's two variables, one's inside of parentheses. So unfortunately, here's where you're going to have to do some math. Okay, or if you were a fan of that 100, negative 100 trick, you could use it here as well. But I think that we should move on, and you guys are just going to have to do a little bit of math here. So I know I have 2n, and if I distribute this negative 3, I get negative 3n minus 9. And we don't really care about this 9 right now. We're more focused on this 2n and this negative 3n. And remember, just like in the last problem, we have 2, so we're going to go ahead and combine them. So 2n minus 3n is going to give us a negative 1. Oops, a negative, come on, man, negative 1n. And we know that that's negative, so that means that this sign is going to have to flip. So that sign will flip, which will make our n, since it's on this side now, greater than, right? Because our n is over here. So our n is actually greater than negative 23. All right, so it's kind of tricky. You have to switch the sign and your n stays on the right. We're used to the n being on the left. And if for some reason you didn't believe me, so if I were to redo all this again, let's see, I believe I had 2n minus 3n minus 9. 14 is greater than or equal to. When I combine my n's, I will get negative 1n minus 9. And then I'm going to add 9 to both sides. Which I'm going to write over here, which would be 23 greater than or equal to negative 1n. And I divide by negative 1. And here's where I need to switch my sign. So I get negative 23. And my n is greater than negative 23. All right, so the following graph shows the solution to which inequality? So here, for this one, my trick to you guys is just put it in Desmos and test this 4. That's all we're going to do is we're going to put it in Desmos and we're going to test that 4. So if I have 3, 2x plus 1, and then I put in my 15, I'm just testing A. And I go x equals 4. We see that I get a 27 and a 15. They do not match, so this is not of interest. I'm going to leave my x equals 4 there because I can. And the left-hand side of B is x plus 6. And the right-hand side is 2. And you can see that 10 and 2 do not match. So then when I try C, my left-hand side is 2x plus 12. And my right-hand side is 20. So I'm thinking C is probably a good choice. I'm going to give it a little circle. But I also know that I need to check my last answer just in case. And the left-hand side of D is 2x, 2 parentheses x plus 8. And the right-hand side is 20. And you can see here that 24 and 20 don't match. So D is not a solution. All right, so this will be our last one. You can put this in Desmos. And I think we'll go that route. We will put this in Desmos. So I'm going to go ahead and put the left-hand side of my equation, my inequality, excuse me. Negative 4, negative 3x plus 3 minus 6. And my right-hand side is negative 114. So I have x equals. Well, let me test out all of these numbers down here. I'm testing out my answers, right? You're testing out the numbers in your answers. So I try negative 8. Try it there. So I try negative 8. And sure enough, my left-hand side and my right-hand side match. So that means that C and D are out. Now all I need to do is figure out if my inequality symbol is going to stay the same or change. Well, so here's our variable. We only have 1, which is nice, but it's negative. But it's also being multiplied by another negative. So if we're distributing, and I'm only going to distribute this to the negative 3x because that's all we need to prove, times a negative 3x, I know that a negative times a negative is going to give me a positive. Right, so that means that my sign is going to stay the same. So that means that's going to be A, x is everything greater than negative 8. Now this kind of has like 3 parts to it. So if I were to graph this on a number line, I have my 0 here, I'd have a negative 8 here, and it's everything greater than negative 8. And you could draw another 8 here just for symmetry. Now, if you wanted to see if you wanted to find out if you had to select all of these out of these possible answers that would satisfy this inequality, you know that you could plug in a negative 8 for x and see if it fits. Like, well, let me do a negative 3, right? So if I put a negative 3 in, I get negative 54 for my left-hand side, and I get negative 114, and I know that negative 54 is larger than negative 114. So negative 3 is an answer. Or you can read this inequality. I know that 9 is greater than -8. It's just bigger than -8. Or you could check out this number line. Here's my 1. My 1 is in the direction of the arrow. It's on this line. So 1 will work. -11's out here. -11 doesn't work. And remember, -8 is equal to -8. It is not, in fact, greater than. All right, so that's pretty much all that we have for today. Good luck. Tomorrow we're going to have variables on both sides. Other than that, just do your best, and don't forget we have a test on Friday.